All right. Welcome to the first, and hopefully first of many, podcast live streams here. Um, we're very excited to bring in a new first-time guest, get things going. Hopefully things will patchwork together. It is the first time, so there may be some glitches along the way. We're okay with that. I have a very special guest today that I met a few months ago, part of the DOTC office technology ecosystem. Let him tell his stories. It's Scott Murr. Let me pull him in real quick here. Scott, hey.
Hey, Greg, thanks for
having me. How are you today?
I'm good.
My pleasure. I'm doing good. Tell us again where are you physically located? It's Arizona, right?
Yeah, Phoenix, Arizona.
What's the weather like?
Well, summer doesn't end, it feels like sometimes here. So we're
are you guys in triple digits, right?
109. Oh yeah, 109 today, and a little humidity with the monsoons coming through, but it seems like we have offices in a couple different places, and they've all been pretty warm. So Fresno was 111, Sacramento was 110.
Yeah, 110 in Sacramento is not fun. I've been there.
Yeah, a little humidity there. That's actually worse. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all clay out there too, if I remember correctly. Where I was on a field doing something, and it was rock. Well, good. So, Scott, a brief little introduction. A little bit ago, I was hooked by your story about how, it's classic. In the industry, saw a need for something, filled that need literally from the ground floor, which is a story that most copier dealers started throwing fax machines in the back of their Pinto wagon and selling it door to door. So there's that ground floor entrepreneurial spirit that your story is not similar to, is identical with. So I like that, and I know that people can get some satisfaction out of hearing it from somebody else. Also, you're going through the COVID thing, just like everyone else. So there's trials and tribulations. So I really wanted to get your story out there, talk about how you got to where you're at, and then what you've got now that some of the dealers may be able to take advantage of. I believe in it, but I'm not gonna hard sell it. I really want to know your story. How's it going? What got you here? Everything from, you walked in one day and said, hey, to your wife, I'm going to start a new business and I need to go buy a truck or something like that. Whatever it is, I love it. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the industry, where you see your products and services going, and how it can, again, like I said, maybe help some folks either diversify or add a couple new revenue streams to their existing portfolio of services. So anyway, tell us just a thumbnail of the business and then how you got started, and then we'll talk about that.
Well, I guess there's three of them. So I'll start.
Right.
The first one was offsite, and offsite office equipment storage specializes in warehousing and transportation of leased equipment. So we pick up equipment, leased copiers that may have some time left on their leases. We'll store it for customers. We'll work with them on getting their letter of intent sent in, and then we'll ship that equipment back at the end of the lease term. We also
let me interrupt you already. You were in the industry, right? You sold copiers, correct?
No, I was in lease. I was on the leasing side of the business. So,
okay. Well,
I worked for the equipment lessors when I first started, and then I ended up going on to the dealer side, where I was the leasing managers and originated the transactions, got credits approved.
Oh, okay. All right. Because another thing that piqued my interest when we first started talking is I remember I spent I served 4 years, I think, with Icon, and the deal was, you go in, obviously hopefully this is a common story within the industry. You go in and there's 12 months left. There could be 24 months left on an existing lease. And you go in and you pull that, you get them to say, no, I want the new machine. Okay, we're going to write you a check for your stream of payments, blah, blah, blah. Now we just need to put the copier somewhere off to the side or something. And I remember that part being a pain because back then, all we wanted to do was sell it, get it out, the new device in. Anything that happened afterwards, we're off to the next one. Oh yeah, that's right. I told you we'd have someone come by and pick that up. So that service to me would, and of course Icon had its own thing going on, but that was when I worked with a Panasonic dealership. We did that on a small business. We were with the leasing company. Certainly they'd write a check for the stream and all that paperwork, but it was up to me, the dealership, and the customer and the other lease company to work everything out for the return or the storage of or whatever. So Yeah, I'm familiar, and I remember that being a pain in the butt. Seriously.
Yeah. No, I was at Icon and Rico at the times too. So I mean, I recognize and remember that well. And it was the OEMs that had a more strict policy against handling of competitive leased equipment. And so
Oh God, that's right.
salespeople felt a lot of times that they would be at a competitive disadvantage against an independent who would agree to pick up and store the equipment. So then they would get discouraged because the independent would, I'll pick it up and take care of everything. They're at an OEM and they're saying, no, we won't. So that's where we really pushed out. My marketing campaign was going directly to OEM salespeople originally that I pulled the databases through LinkedIn, and I would email them, hey, here's a solution. Like you said, you can build in the cost in the customer's buyout check. The customer signs a storage agreement with Offsite, and then the arrangement is directly with the customer and Offsite, and the OEM is keeping their hands, clean and out of them part of it. So it did get them to comply. It created a solution. And I think at the end of the day, it became a better solution than an OEM or a non-OEM, an independent dealer picking the equipment up and storing it.
Oh yeah. I mean, they were coming out there with two-wheelers and just throwing the machine in, and it was in a warehouse. It was out back, barely covered roof, and that's, of course, back then it was okay, I guess.
Well, the independents don't like being in the storage business either, because they don't know what the sales rep promised on their behalf. And then that sales rep moves on to another territory, moves to another company. And now he said he was going to send our letter of intent in for us, or did they get the wrong date? Now they're, lease administrators are trying to track this stuff and they don't know. The customer comes back and, $5,000 a month lease payment just renewed for 12 months and they have to eat the cost. It's horrible.
It's terrible. And you're giving me like stress because that would happen. And it happens. I think it happens to every sales rep at least once. And then you remember. Yeah. It's like forgetting that one part between the finisher and the engine. Oh, it doesn't work. You need that. Everyone does it once. But that was painful because you're exactly right. We were supposed to remind you to send your letter 30 days before and not more than 90 days before. And we forgot. And now who's on the hook? We are, because the dealer. It's like, wow. So yeah, all right. So that's an important service to me that I can relate to back, but I kind of pulled you off path. So tell me, go back into how you got in this. But how did you're there? Now what? How did you decide to go do what you did?
Well, I was at an independent dealer, Rico, back up in Portland, Oregon in 2009. And Rico bought them. There's a company called Associated Business Systems. And then they bought Icon right there too. So it was bringing it back in, and ABS at the time did pick up and store equipment. I think we had 300 or 400 machines in the warehouse, and we had 2 lease administrators managing the LOI dates, and I was over them, making sure that they were following through on that process. But I remember watching it and thinking to myself, as Rico comes in and Icon, this storage is going to go away. These sales reps are not going to have a solution. It was kind of an idea I'd always had thought of, even back to 2000s when I first heard this. I think it was the rules were initially litigated. I think it was Wells Fargo and DLL. I don't remember, back in 2000, where it was found that they were not obligated to take the equipment back early and didn't have to accept that stream of payments early.
Oh.
And so I remember thinking, God, that'd be an interesting business to store equipment and do that. And then, I finally ended up saying, okay, 2009, I was like, well, let's try it, And so I just, that's where I took my 401k, and we were from Arizona. I didn't want to create anything where I would have any sort of competitive issues with those guys at Rico. Like I had a great group of people I worked with up there, really supportive. And so I ended up moving that back down to Arizona and opened up the company here and started it out. And
where did you move back from? Where were you?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, you were up in Portland. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So, okay. So you decided to move down to Arizona. Now tell me about how did you go about personally making that decision? And so you cashed in your 401k. Okay. There's one checkbox that is pretty,
yeah.
What next? I'm going for a certain conversation I want to hear that you had with someone.
Well, you had to sell it to the wife.
There you go.
And I don't know. I mean, I've tried in other businesses in the past, software one back in 2007, didn't really go anywhere. I always had ideas. And so, but I'd only really, it kind of makes you a little nervous going in and pitching it, but you get an idea and it gets consuming in you and you can't stop, like it's got to happen and everything. And so, we actually had moved to Oregon back up from Phoenix in the beginning, or probably mid 2009. And so my wife, she was my wife at the time, but now, and then, so we moved up there and I said, I got this idea. We got to do this. And she said, well, let's finish. Let's take some more time to plan it out. And so
Okay.
we worked up there where I worked at ABS. I sort of worked in the background, kind of building out the business plan and model and forecast. But she said she believed in me. She just wanted to have some more time to build up some money and some experience. And so we, the time came. She got tricked by the Pacific Northwest, and anyone that's lived there, I'll tell you.
All right.
If you go visit the Pacific Northwest, it's beautiful. This weather's great, everything. Then you move up there, and that's sure enough what happened to her. Is then she saw 9 months straight of cloud and rain, and sure there's a nice day or two in there. It's a beautiful place. The people are great. I love it. I grew up there, but the rain really grinds on you. And by the time we hit, I think September, October of 2010, she was ready. We got in the cars and moved back down here. And I still remember when we stopped in Palm Springs there's a Holiday Inn, and they had Casper the Ghost dive-in movie going out there. We sat out there. I was just sort of feeling that nice, warm, dry air.
Oh yeah.
And I love the Northwest. I do, but I was so happy to be back into the, a little drier, sunnier climate. But that's what,
that's cool.
Got it done. And
so then you what did you go look for work? I mean, how do you do that? Did you look for a truck first, or what was and then how did you do that?
Well, I came down a month or two before, and we stayed, and I went around and made some calls on some local dealers here in Phoenix, and it's the idea that I wanted to do. And in hindsight, it was a pretty high risk pitch. Hey, I'm a new business with this idea. I want to take machines out of your warehouse and store them for 2-3 years at a time. I've never done this before, and it's a lot of risk there. And so a lot of these guys were like, okay, yeah, we'd be interested in doing it. And so I made business model plans, a forecast, everything went back. Okay, hey, Michelle, we're good to go. This is it. I found a 1,500 square foot little warehouse down here. Pretty good rate month to month. I think I did 18 months on it. And so then, we moved down. I remember that first day we moved into a friend's house to keep our rent low. And then we ended up, I drove over there that next day, and I sat there, and I remember sitting in the lobby signing, getting the lease and the keys to my little warehouse, and then driving over there. And it was kind of like, okay, here you go. And that was where I remember the first thing was I sent out those dealers. Hey, I'm good. I'm ready to go. Business is open. And no one ever sent anything to start. It went on.
Oh my God.
It was just like nothing. And I even at one point, I remember one of those dealers, I'd sent him a thing, because I just want to get machines into the warehouse. I said, hey, I'll store your 50 machines for free. And they still didn't bite on it. And so it was just one of those things I was really starting to worry if I made a big mistake in how I planned out my business model, because the forecasts and projections were nothing compared to what the reality was. Yeah.
Well, then you've got to remember then when it tipped. What was it that tipped the scale into the good side? What was it, an account that you landed, or what was that like?
Well, if I had to say, I would say it rolls back to Rico Icon up in the Pacific Northwest a little bit.
Okay.
And, I had some people up there, longtime guys in the industry, Kurt Albrecht, Rob Kirkpatrick, Bob Cother.
These names I recognize. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And, they were, they're friends and everything too, but they actually were supportive. And I know they had to get that equipment in Portland, and they had the Seattle branch for Rico out because Rico's policy was against holding it. So what I did is I actually worked with them, pulling some of that equipment out when they sold net new business. They had me training salespeople. So they sort of started it out, and they had a couple larger takedowns, and I ended up, I think, getting 60, 70 machines off that, but that was probably 6-8 months in by the time I finally started to see it. But I still remember, that first check that I saw for, because we were collecting the full term of the storage plus prepaid return shipping with the pickup and everything. So it was you're getting paid up front, which was good,
right,
for cash flow. And so that kind of kicked it off. And then it was just, again, it never did blow up in terms of a big thing. It was a slow grind all the way down, where basically I had to kind of do it myself and then figure out some additional revenue streams. And that was probably the biggest part, was, looking at, I've got to expand a little bit beyond storage. What else is there that I can do to support the business? And I was trying to be a completely unique business, but if you're too one-dimensional, you're not going to make it. Because if you're wrong, you're done. So you've got to, you can't spread out too much, because then you become watered down and you don't really go anywhere. But, I did get into doing more of those end of lease returns. And that helped us. Copier relocations, new equipment deliveries, things like that help, pull.
So along your path to doing stuff like that, now I just remembered watching one of your videos. So you've had to actually invent, invent different things that helped your literally in the field transporting the copiers. Because if you think about it, you put a bunch of copiers, I think about it, a bunch of copiers in a truck. And if anyone's ever moved, when you put it in the truck and move, and then you open up the truck when you get there, it's all confabulated, right? I mean, everything's all tossed and turned. You may think it's the smoothest trip. So I'm thinking, how the heck do you do that with freaking heavy copiers on wheels? You can lock the casters and stuff. But did you have to go through some stuff and did you patent any, or tell the story of what you did? Because it looked kind of cool. Those parts and stuff.
It kind of went back to the first part, because you're right. I'd never been in a warehouse. I didn't know anything about transportation, warehousing, how to move equipment, any of it, which I didn't factor that into my business planning, which was for the wife asking, right? Like, hey, so tell me about your experience in this. So I remember one time I went back to Portland, and I was doing some consulting too for ABS Rico at the time. And I went to the warehouse person there. Shelly was her name. And I said, Shelly, how do you strap copiers in a truck? And she said, oh, E-Track. Like, E-Track? So I wrote it down, and then probably Google was my friend at the time. So I get back, I'm like, okay, E-Track, what is all this E-Track they speak of? And so I look at the E-Track and kind of figured it from there. And so E-Track is it's two pieces. It's the straps that you can utilize that click into a metal rail that you would attach within the truck, and it secures it where you can click it in and click it out and tighten the straps. So I kind of went with that. But I think one of the good things that happened for me was, a lot of times when you train people into a business or an organization, you're training them, here's how you do it. And so then it doesn't have you thinking of it, you're out of the box. And so what I did on it was, okay, I have E-Track, that one, I don't have to reinvent the wheel there. And I reinvented the wheel a lot, but there were times I looked at stuff too. I'm like, how would I think is the best way to load or pack this truck tight? And boy, if somebody could do this or this, so then that's where I, created some things with some load bar things where we actually, would drop two rows of machines, strap them in, and then to keep them from moving too much would drop a support beam in there. And then I actually attached E-Track onto that support beam, and it created a 90-degree turn in how you strap stuff in. And so it was kind of cool, because I'd have people, I'd pull up and up your trucks, so these longtime guys in the warehouses moving equipment, and they'd look in your truck, and they always do, and they'd look and see those, and I'd have these 30-year veterans, hey, can you make me some of those? And they were actually really fascinated by how that worked. And, but it definitely does help, because we're a little different than dealers, where dealers just pack on the walls, and, they may go out and deliver 10 machines at a time or 5 machines at a time. We're filling a 24-foot truck, and we're trying to get every inch used. And so you've got to have the bars, you got to have the support and the innovation. Right. I think we're still, I've seen other carriers have taken over, you started doing the same thing I did, but it's kind of fun.
Well, it looks like Tetris to me, but so that that game came in handy, I'm sure. But along those lines, so inventive, see an opportunity. So I'm guessing as the business progressed, you were doing things in the back office, and this is going to dovetail nicely into how the heck do you track what you're telling me to track? Because you touched on it earlier. Helping the sales rep remember to send the letter, or whomever to send that letter. So how did that evolve? I mean, tell me about that side of the business, and create your own software, that when you went in that direction? How did that start, and where's it at, and all that? Tell me the story.
Well, I I remember when I first started getting more and more machines in, I was absolutely petrified of having a lease go into an auto renewal situation and having a customer come back to me through, hey, Rico said you were going to do this, or the sales rep, and I was petrified because at that time I started the company with $30,000. I was, our revenues are small, our margins were small.
Thin.
You get a $15,000-$20,000 renewal, I'm done. And so
cooked.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, how do you track this stuff? And so I had a spreadsheet. I was trying the Outlook calendars, and it's just sort of like the E-Track in the truck. Like, well, that's not working. What can, I'm going to go outside the box and think, what else is there out there? I looked around. There's no software that did it. I looked at Reich, Asana, a couple others, but they're more project management, and they don't really address this type of a need. I saw contract management software, but that's incredibly expensive. It's complicated, especially back in 2013, 2014. It just was not equitable. So I decided to try building my own software. And so I didn't write the code. I just had visions of what I wanted to do with it. And I had some developers I worked with, and I took some of the money. It was a budget long-term project, but we eventually started a company called Renew Alert. And so I built that out with the initial vision of tracking letter of intent dates on copiers. And then it kind of morphed from there because I was looking at it thinking, well, nobody's going to use a software just to track the copier expiration dates. So I really expanded the scope of what it does. And it just kind of running the business. It's more of that death by 1,000 paper cuts. Most companies will say, oh, I've got those 3 big things that'll knock me out. No problem. I got that handled. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure you do. Spreadsheet, whatever. What about the 1,500 things down here that are just going to slice you up and bleed you out slowly? And it's going to be stuff from like elevator permits, compliance, city licenses. There's all types of best practices, COIs that you got to do, HVAC warranty. So I created Renew Alert where it actually sends emails and tracks and manages every single thing. And then I actually made it too, so it's industry specific. So we have a lot of hotels that utilize it, and we actually have hotels now that have industry reminders that like a travel agent arrange contracts. There's all kinds of things I didn't even know. So they can actually click their industry of, oh, I'm in hospitality, and it populates for that general manager of that hotel, industry specific reminders. And then we have a hierarchy feature too, where you could actually go in and have a CEO at the top and they can see everything. And then as you go downstream, the visibility gets less, but you can see individual departments. You can have HR specific categories. You can have accounting specific categories. You can have industry specific categories, and you can have different categories within an account. I know it's a big answer to what you're saying, but it's how
so I guess to take a couple steps back. So let's outline the businesses that you have. You said it's offsite, and tell me what there's 3 that we can segment out of.
Renew Alert is the second one.
Renew Alert,
the newer one that I've done.
Titan 8. Okay, all right. And the software solution came out of trying to manage all your customers' assets, et cetera, and all that other stuff.
The letter of intent on it. So yeah.
And that was from offsite. Is that a true statement? That's how that started?
Yeah. That was me. Okay. I was calling these customers, reminding them on their letter of intent, and they wouldn't even know what I'm talking about. And I was like, how are you you don't know anything about this $5,000 a month lease payment you've got that's going to renew and cost you $60,000. And like, if you're not tracking this, what are you? You're tracking nothing else then.
Yeah. Then no one's tracking it either. I mean, that's been part and parcel of the dealer. That was cash flow. That was revenue predicted beyond 60 months. It's like, okay, well, they're never, whatever it was, it's going to auto renewal. So
yeah,
that kept a lot of service.
Yeah, that's a big one.
God.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but then, so you designed this solution for your industry, for what, for your business, literally, and then it expanded out, which is, that's actually a common way software got developed back in the olden days. A poor guy who was a home builder developed a job costing system off of spreadsheets, knew a guy who did some programming, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, they're out there reselling the software package instead of building homes. So that happens a lot. So, okay. Now, multi-industries, let's bring it back to the copier dude that's selling right now. If I go out and I'm hitting the streets, I'm selling machines. So let's say I run into an account. It's got more than 30 devices, multiple leasing companies, X dates, the whole thing. And all right, this off the cuff. I'm going to put in an MPS solution. So I'm looking at the purchased printers. I'm looking at the leased devices. They've also got some purchased copiers that they bought in some departments. We'll just keep it in one area. Is it possible for me to what information can I put in that system that would help me future manage it out? Because, right, they're not going to, X dates are 48 months. All right, that one's going to stay there for a long time. We might churn it out or move it or whatever. I'm trying to figure out where the edges are of your solution in that kind of situation. Then I've got another question to follow up on that. So what would I, as a sales rep selling an MPS solution at a 25 to 30 device solution that have multiple term dates, multiple leases, all that stuff? Where would I help me understand how I would massage or use that system?
Well, that actually pivots almost into Titan 8 more a little bit.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
So, I mean, you've got the contract side and the renewal alert side of it, but then there's the Titan 8, which is a technology asset management software we developed too. And so that's where you could actually, and that came in, it allows a user to track all their copiers, printers, servers, phone systems, laptops, PCs, printers, everything that is, sort of electronics out there. So they could actually, if they have a remote office, a lot of people working from home, and they don't really know, okay, what's John Smith over there have in his office? Well, you can actually have the serial make, model, serial number in here. You could have a dealer ID number, device reference in terms of where that device, referencing where it is. It has the address where it's located, and then what you can actually do too is you can put in initiate relocations through the system. You can request service, you can buy supplies, you can request service calls, you can track meters, you can see the device history. It's a tool that allows a company to deploy and move their IT assets between offices, know where they are, recycle, resell them, do all that stuff, request upgrades to their original dealer. So as an MPS person coming out there, you're going to come out with a solution that's going to go a little far more reaching, right? Because you're going to say, okay, here, I could do this with your printers. And by the way, all those computers and monitors and everything else, we paid cash flows, I don't need to track it. You do, what's your depreciable life cycle you want to have before you refresh that technology? Is it 3 years? Right. Is it 4 years? How many companies buy a new laptop after a year because they don't know how old it was and didn't need to be refreshed? So it helps with cash forecasting. And then actually you can recycle equipment through this system where you can click on it, request, I got 1,500 laptops here. And we can actually get them a quote to recycle that equipment back. So it's a solution there that's going to take you, where you're not, it's very hard for a competitor to do apples to apples when you're going to come in and offer a solution that's going to fix problems a customer doesn't even know they have.
Right. So you kind of headed off my next question. So I can see MPS side, one more time. If I go out, you said meter reads and things like that. I don't want to get into the weeds, but it looks like I can, if the data's out there somehow, I can get it into the system and use it as a pre-sales tool, or even am I stretching it if I say I go out and I do an assessment? No, I can input the serial number or get that data from the assessment into Titan 8, and it's now an asset management with some financial capability. Is that what I heard you say? That you can put in a cost, and where do the dollars hit your system? How does that work?
Well, the Titan 8 part, you can put in, if it's a leased asset, if it's cash or financed, you can put in the expiration date, and you can put the letter of intent date on it with the lease number, who the lessor is, and it'll actually change color codes in terms of when your letter of intent date is triggered. So it's not going to be as comprehensive as Renew Alert, where it's going to actually send email reminders to whomever you designate, but this is going to be something where it's asset based. So you're saying, okay, these 4 machines here are coming up to term. So you could put in what you're proposing for your MPS, but then you may find out they got another contract 2 states over. You can populate that into the system too. And now you've got that business intelligence on your customer because you're bringing the total solution. So you're going to be in a good position to take over that contract or upgrade those devices when those come to term as well.
Right. So, and then you it's always been my belief, and someone will, whatever, it's not many people got behind this, is that MPS is BPO. MPS has always been, to me, part of the ITIL model, asset management model with the IT department. They hate printers, but what they hate more than printers is counting mice and keyboards and monitors every year to do a detailed inventories, because the finance department, and I'm thinking of hospitals, want to know exactly how many dollars are in my IT assets and where they're at. So typically these guys have spreadsheets, a different tab for different departments, a different spreadsheet for different locations, and they physically have to go out. And that's a challenge. That is a huge challenge, manpower wise. And they're trying to, again, to stretch it, they're tracking everything from literally servers in the old days, firewalls and all that, to oxygen tanks, closed circuit televisions, RFID readers, stuff like that. The little things that track a baby that leaves the nursery and all the locks and the doors shut, stuff like that. That falls in to the IT budget asset financial analysis.
Yeah.
So any tool that helps that along is valuable. And I know that, there are plenty of them out there, but there's still there's no gold or silver bullet. And a lot of them don't, they do one thing really well, but they don't do everything very well. There are sacrifices that have to be done. And one of them is end of life, because life cycle management on the IT, and again, it's kind of changed. The acceleration has changed a little bit. The model's changed a little bit because of COVID. But life cycle management on the IT side is really important. So when do you refresh that laptop or that server? And then where is it? So having, something like, and as an MPS guy, like you just said, I come in and say, listen, I like your printers, but, I noticed there's laptops and all this, let's talk, at least open up that door to have a discussion. And, getting real tactical, as I could even use a simple report that comes out of Titanate or whatever, and say, listen, this is what we found with just a 2-day survey. How are you guys tracking? And then get the conversation going. That's what I like about stuff like that. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the end of life management. If I've got I'll go back to MPS, it's real simple. 10 of those machines are up in, say, February or January, right? And we've already made the letters and everything's ready to go with one of your 3 business units right now in my head, right? I can work with you. Not only will I have the software to tell me that this, that, and the other thing, but you'll have the trucks come in and do all that stuff. Is that part of that story?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can initiate a relocation request, part-time storage,
that's right. You mentioned
end of lease return, recycling, and it actually goes into a queue on the back end, which then our team will provide price points, pricing, okay, to do this relocation, the storage, all that quoted to the customer. And the way we're doing it is it's, if a customer goes direct online and looks up how much is it to move a copier for or lease return my fleet of printers back to the leasing company, that's a retail quote. And they're going to get quoted generally 2 times higher than what a copier dealer is paying from a carrier directly. We're trying to bridge that in the middle and offer that discounted pricing. So if a customer does go through Titanate, they actually are getting discounts in a lower rate to move equipment, to store equipment, to return end of lease assets too. So that does help them financially. One thing with the end of lease assets too, I was thinking about the other day, is like with computers, they're doing more and more of this cloud software. And you've got Microsoft 365. I see it. Okay, you put it on this computer. It's $8.99 a month that they're billing you. Okay, I got Adobe Acrobat on this one. This is another $12.99, and that's a license. So you can have 6, 7, 8, 9 softwares on a laptop at a remote office.
You will have. Yeah, absolutely.
And now what happens when you dispose or remove that asset? Well, if you don't know what that asset's ID was and seat and every single little bit of software that was on it, to disable it, they're going to keep billing you in perpetuity. And now you got no idea. So then you could have 2-3 generations of laptops have gone to that employee. And if you've never turned off the billings and your company's not able to track how many times Microsoft's billing, you're paying for 3 or 4 licenses for one user on 3 laptops where that 2 of them were already been recycled and are in the dump. It's crazy out there, but that's a direction software's going more and more too. It's not insert the disk and download it, and oh, that's the wrong computer. Now they're doing this cloud thing, and they're doing it on purpose. It's a residual, it's a recurring revenue stream, and they know that people can't track that. And a mechanism to track the software now is almost going to be more important than a mechanism to track the hardware, because
I agree.
yeah, everybody's against these renewal terms, right? Of, oh, these leasing companies are terrible. They're charging 3-month or 12-month renewals. It's the month-to-month ones that are just as dangerous, if not more, because you don't get concerned about, oh, it's month to month, I don't need to track that. And you forget about it and they escalate.
Right. There's the escalation. There's right. I had 3 Hulu accounts. All right. I mean, everyone said this, like, how did that happen? I mean, I shut it all off and I'm still getting it. It was like something like, yeah, whatever. So I'm sure that's an issue, but that's very, because SaaS is the way of the world. That's the way it's going. Software as a service, log in, $5 a month for the rest of your life.
Right.
Or whatever. Well, actually beyond that, as long as someone doesn't cancel it. And it reminds me a little bit of walking in and doing MPS assessments and walking into the toner closet, which sounds like it's a small little, oh no, these things, when you walk in, it's a walk-in closet with brand new cartridges for a printer that's been gone for 3 years. It's like, well, dude, you got $4,000 in this closet, and $1,000 of it is you're buying it, but the printer's been gone. It's an Oki Data 182. You haven't had one of those in 10 years or whatever it is. Like, but you got nice ribbons. So it's but then multiply that. It's what would you paper cuts? It's a cut, but it's death by 1,000 cuts. It really is. Okay, so part of the end of life management is subscription management. So but those get into the system attached to the asset number, I'm guessing, right? And then,
you could put a note in there or list the additional part. You can actually track softwares if you need to.
Okay.
Again, that's tight. So that's asset. Renewal alert is, if it's a lease with 100 assets or down to an individual elevator permit. So those are separate. We're working on having the two communicate a little bit more, but
okay, I was going to ask.
The ROIs on them are just off the charts. It's
right,
but you just have to show how to use it.
Yeah. One more technical question on the end of life. So a big issue is destroying the hard drives, putting the seals on the I mean, I had to follow a truck to Las Vegas from, I don't know where it was, Imperial County. Well, I didn't. We had to have someone physically follow the truck to Las Vegas to make sure the assets went to the right site and the hard drives were certified, degaussed and smashed and all that stuff. Is that, I'm guessing if it's not your service, you have lines into that, so I can be safe and know that their devices are going to be stripped and cleaned and everything like that, right?
Right. And that's with the Titan 8 part. Mm-hmm. We're looking to, if a dealer is reselling that through us, we're looking to bring those revenue opportunities to the dealer. And what the dealer chooses they don't want to do, we don't want to do this part or this part or this part, we can work with the customer to fulfill that too. So if the customer has a hard drive requirement that they want to get taken care of, that I'm going to send into my originating dealer first. And if the dealer says, Scott, we don't want to get involved in the hard drives with this, then that's a product we can take out and outsource to another company out there for the customer. Okay. But it is I want to be a one-stop shop for that customer to come to, but also where the dealer's not having to get out of their core competency, but they can pick and choose what do they want to do. And it could open up some new revenue streams for them as well.
That's really, all right, that's a nice segue into the next. So I was going to ask you a twofold kind of conversation here. The new revenue streams for a dealer. I think we've touched it. We'll explore that even more. And then in addition to that, can this service be sold through the dealer to one of their customers? So again, back to the hospitals, very familiar with healthcare, work with all the big hospitals. They want to be whatever. They don't even want HP to come in. They want to fix their own HPs and all that stuff. So they want to be self-fulfilling and self-managed. Is there we're jumping ahead, but is there a way, or what way is it for, if I'm dealer ABC and I'm working with Mission Health or Mayo, and they want to be able to track blah, 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 blah. I have a system that I use at my dealership that does that for my salespeople. Can I offer that to them and receive revenue from that? you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Or
No,
okay.
and that
So how does that work? Yeah, go ahead.
what's a big design of it really, and that's where I think it's a great. That was how I designed Titan 8. Was I saw too many sales reps with major accounts, and they were tracking their customers' devices on a spreadsheet, and
Mm-hmm.
there would be these, a managed care facility or franchises or whatever it would be, and they've got 300 locations of 1,500 devices, and they're working with their procurement person. Okay, we're moving this here to here, and it was just a disaster. It's like, what happens if it's the wrong variation of the spreadsheet and you forward the wrong one, and now that data, so you don't know,
That never
it
happens.
becomes a who's on first. So this was sort of born from that as a tool to come in and empower your customer to be able to manage their fleet and allow the salesperson to go out and sell more. Because I'm seeing these guys are turning more into asset managers themselves than salespeople. And so these generally, when you put those people in those positions, those are proven salespeople that have really done well in the past, closing business. So providing this tool does allow them to get out and sell, but I know the dealer still wants to have a level of involvement and influence on that customer's fleet too.
Right.
So by originating that over, you're the one invoicing the customer for it. Titan 8 has that arrangement set up directly with the dealer instead. We're working on it where it can get funded through some leasing companies as a software solution, just like Renewal Alert can too. So you can actually sell a 3-year term on it funded through a lease, and then that customer can utilize that. But then you can also pull in all this other equipment. And so that's where the dealer could look at it and say, okay, I didn't know this customer had, 32 Ricos in Tennessee when you're originating, you're, selling them Konicas out of Phoenix. And so now those leases expire, and then you can actually set those up where the customer can automate and do an upgrade request. And that upgrade request comes right in straight to you, the dealer. So it sort of automates and takes the friction away. If the customer says, I'm sick of this machine, I'd like to upgrade this machine. It'll send you, here's the serial number, dealer ID, make, model, and location of the machine they want to upgrade this.
Okay. Wow. So then, well, back to this. Is Titan 8 and are those software solutions cloud-based, or are they on-prem? What stage are they in right now?
Cloud-based.
Okay, good. All right. So it's literally like we were just talking. I mean, the model is per month or per user. How would that work? Seriously, if I were to sell it to, say, at a hospital system, what's the basic?
Yeah, it's a great question. Because we're breaking it into tiers of how many devices are tracked. So you could be up to, it's like we're at up to 500, 1,500, and then 2,500 and above. And so you've got an enterprise model and everything there too that can track it. And a lot of it's based on just burden and storage, and infrastructure on the servers that they would be doing, because you can upload and store images, documents. When we store copiers for offsite, we use Titan 8, and we actually have pictures of the machines. We have the printouts of their config pages. So we actually have it too, where some of our dealers that utilize it use it we'll put in the meters and the pictures, and they use it on their used equipment inventory, so they can quickly go through. Okay, I'm looking for a Konica 368. Oh, that meter's good. Look at the picture. Yeah, this is the one we're going to push out and sell to a customer.
Okay.
So it can be used in a lot of different ways internally at a dealer, not just to resell to customers.
Right. So how detailed? You say you can initiate service calls or upgrades and things like that, and this. Not a loaded question, but is there integration out to, say, ServiceNow or any of the help desk software package or the service desk software, or are we entering that in separate from those systems? And talk a little bit about that. And even more, can an end user actually initiate it through the system? So if we supply it to somebody, what's the interface between them and the dealer, and et cetera? Can we log the service calls, stuff like that?
So the end user can initiate it. And what it is on a device, we'll have you can put in the sales email that you want it to go to, and you can have a service email. So right now it just generates the emails. It has no connectivity per se on it. So
That's
it
right.
would do that. So you could actually click the service call. It'll populate into the text of the email, the make, model, serial number, location, but it'll send it to the service email and goes out that way. Same on the sales.
So it's email integration. Okay.
Yeah. Now you can take an email too sometimes, and I've seen it with some of the softwares we work internally here and how it go. We are working on some integrations out there where we do want to be able to have it communicate, but it has to have meaningful data communication too, where so I got to have portions of that dealer's fleet communicating, but they're not interested in their Dell computers or their servers or their laptops or their smart board, whatever else is out there that may not be relevant.
Exactly. The relevance is the big key. So in the industry, and this is another reason that attracted me over to what your value prop and thing is how do I say this? The bigger companies, the ones who know everything, just ask them. They're big on integration.
Yeah.
Right. Which is, the API and, integration in the old days, and probably you just upload the spreadsheet. Okay. It's now integrated. Right. That's when I was in computers. Integration meant when I hit the return button, the invoice went into the system. I didn't have to upload and download anything, regardless. But what I'm seeing now, because what I try is you're younger, quote unquote, you're not, how do I say this? Status quo, right? To me, right now, that is more valuable than having 150,000 customers all over the globe using your software, and you do 4 upgrades a year, and you cannot take care of ABC dealership because you've got freaking Konica or whatever, one of the big OEMs breathing down your neck to integrate their devices off of their anyway. So you can be a little more agile, right? And relevant. So, integration sounds good. It's a great value add. Is it? If it's not relevant to me, I don't really care. I mean, are you going to integrate the ability to read oxygen tanks? Maybe not. But if you can scan it in, and now I've got a sheet of them all, and okay, I'll put that in. And if it's a spreadsheet upgrade, that's once a month, once a year, that's fine. I don't need live updates. That was another thing. Back when we did, we still do DCAs. I like stuff that was live. A service issue, a service alert, that had to be live. But I didn't need meters to be read every single. I realized that I guess I really don't need that. I do need to know when something fails and stuff. So it's what I call the island of knowledge, but it's okay kind of thing. They're not silos. They're islands, and we can communicate relevant information back and forth. But that isn't the value. The value is in the island. It's not in the ability to communicate with other islands, because then what I've noticed, and there's a big, huge company in the industry right now that does accounting systems and contract management. It's a patchwork of different vendors, different software packages. It hasn't been changed in years. So support, they're sluggish. They're very slowly to respond to certain things, and the things they respond to aren't relevant to everyone. So that's my soapbox there. That's what attracted me to this solution. So let's concentrate a little bit more. One more time, I want to be able to describe and talk to. If I have a buddy, he's a dealer down in Miami, right? What's the benefit of aligning with either your remote or Titan 8? What's going to bring what are the tangible cash flow issues? How's that going to affect his cash flow if he invests time and energy and money into something like Titan 8 or any of your services? Where's that impact going to be?
Well, it's in a number of areas. Probably the biggest one I've seen is, and you've seen this the way my businesses work, is I'm a big believer in creating unique products and solutions. And you erode margin or don't get deals when you're in apples to apples sales opportunities with your competition. If they can compare apples to apples, they'll undercut you on price. You become a commodity. And that's what I'm always striving to do is, everything can be done better. What can I do to create a unique solution for my customers? And that's what you've seen here with my transportation and logistics, storage, with the softwares out here. So what we're building here is an opportunity for a salesperson to come out and really address their customers' problems. If a salesperson is going out to a net new account and your dealership is currently storing equipment and they've got 22 months left on their current lease, on a competitor's lease, and they're saying they don't have room to store their equipment, the customer's saying that. What they're really saying is, I don't have a solution in place to be able to redeploy and store my office technology. And that's a problem. And so that's an opportunity for a solution. Too many people offer them a Band-Aid and say, oh, no problem. We'll pick up and put your copiers in our warehouse. But did you fix their problem? Their problem, they're saying, I don't know how to move technology or copiers between branch locations. I don't know how to move servers. When an office closes, I don't have a mechanism to pick up and move and put that into storage. I don't have a mechanism to see what machine is where. I don't know how to track when my copier lease is going to end. I don't know how to track when my MPS contract is up. Let's give them solutions on that you can sell and make money, and you can actually gain business intelligence out of and find other opportunities once they import that database that you work with them in there and say, oh, you've got this. You can show additional price savings. Your ROI is going to look different than what your competition's providing. And you now know 22 more opportunities that you didn't know about before you had them pull this into the software. A lot of times they may say, I'm not ready. I had 18 months left on my lease. Come back later. Great. How are you tracking that lease? How are you tracking those machines? And it's a different way in. It's right. You're not having to come in there and just have that one-dimensional conversation. It's a Swiss Army knife of opportunities here that you can come in and utilize. It's just a matter of recognizing the opportunities. That's the biggest thing, and be able to capitalize on them.
Yeah. I mean, okay. That was the golden nugget right there. That whole talk track you just let out, but that's perfect. And you swerved into one of the challenges, though, right? I mean, our channel, I love we're adaptable, we're innovative, we're set our ways, we don't change easily. Obviously, we still sell copiers, and the salespeople, like to sell device. That's not those. It's so much easier to sell a car or a surgical implement if you know the specs and the speeds, and it's just a bunch of line items on a sheet. That's I'm not gonna say easy, but that's a different sale and usually less sophisticated. Probably the best way. It could be just as complicated, but it's less sophisticated, especially in what it delivers. So what you just did is you was above that, went into a deeper level than what you said. I love it. What you said is like, they don't have a problem storing their devices. They have a problem moving and handling their IT assets. That's perfect, right? So yeah, the key there is, we have a format, we have a system, a device, solution, call it whatever you want, that does that. The next thing is having a sales force that recognizes it on the backside, but then can also articulate that to a customer who obviously doesn't know it either, right? They think they have a warehouse problem. They do.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have enough room for all these servers. What am I supposed to do? All right, we need to build a new warehouse. We need more space. So that's how it rolls upstream, it rolls downstream. It's the same thing. Yeah. So having a salesperson who can recognize it, articulate it, and then articulate it in such a way that the prospect comes to that discovery on their own. It's like, oh yeah, I guess yeah. Now the trick here is, I see where this. Sure, maybe because I've been around for 100 million years, I can see where this fits perfectly. And the argument then becomes convincing people or showing people or illustrating people on both sides, the providers and the customers. I believe, though, that a customer is going to be easier to convince than a sales right now. I mean, it's because they live that every day. Right? I mean, the sales guys have plenty of other things to worry about. We got to remember what's a Ben Franklin close, what's my cost, how's my commission, where are my expenses, all that crap. The customers worrying about, I don't have enough warehouse space. Judy's printer went down. But they live that stuff. But this we got to get the word out, because I think that spot right there is key, because it'll apply not only to the copier dealerships but the smaller MSPs and MSPs. What 80-90% of them are 5 employees or under. It's some weird statistic. I don't know the data, but Googleize that. But most of those firms are smaller firms that are same as a copier dealer. We're going to sell them laptops. We're going to image their laptops. We're going to install networks. We're going to get them all their licensing set up, Microsoft certified, firewalls, all that. Then, okay, next. Oh yeah, we do end of life too. That means we'll tell you when you should buy more stuff from us. Okay, that sounds very familiar. But
No, it gives them a network behind. The small guy too just has as big of a network now in terms of transportation and warehousing as the big guys.
it. Would you call that a white box service? Would that be? I mean, could
Yeah.
Another okay. So a great consulting service could offer end of life management and logistics for your devices, and all the documentation would be logoed with GRW.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
For sure.
Let's see what else. All right, so I want to go way back now. So when you were first starting out, did you have to buy or not buy? Did you have to drive from Arizona up to Portland to grab those machines? Is that what you had to do, and then transport them back? And because you were driving the truck, right?
Yeah. So what I did was on that one, it was before I bought my first truck, and then had the catalytic converter stolen off of it, and so
of course.
So I think I moved a couple of machines, locally, but really weren't doing any business. I got it too early, and I hadn't. The truck just sat and had the cats stolen, and so the from Portland down in Seattle, I actually contracted that with a carrier, and that was as the equipment came in and stored, I subbed it out to carriers to pick up, store, hold. They were holding at their warehouses, and it was really expensive. And then it was where it was starting to come to the end of the leases, and I'm paying STI or Sullivan or these other companies out there. And it was just, I'm like, boy, I wonder if I could do this myself. So that's where because I sold the truck that had the cats stolen afterwards because I needed the money. And then it was probably, a year and a half later, I re-explored it. And so I got a little 12-foot truck. And so I started driving that between Phoenix and Southern California. So I would drive out and deliver returns out there. And the thing was kind of flawed in my business model with the storage is in Phoenix, most people stored their own equipment because it's more warehouse space and it was less expensive out here. So like, I got more warehouse space than I need. It's not a problem. It's not a pain point. Southern California was a pain point. So I ended up doing lease returns. I'd pick the equipment up in Southern California, bring it back, store it in Arizona. Once the leases came up, I would drive it back to Southern California, do the deliveries, and then pick up more storage, bring it back. And then we started doing regular runs. And then I started working with more copier dealers in Arizona, doing their lease returns. And so that started filling the trucks, then got bigger trucks and doing more runs, and then eventually went to semis and more locations and things like that.
So when you were driving your truck late at night from, say, what would be like, when you say Southern California, I mean, were you out in Imperial or down by Palm Springs or up to Ontario, or were you did you go north of LA?
Yeah, I would depend. I would start the loop. Sometimes I'd start like 2:30 in the morning. I'd listen to George Norrie. And I get George Norrie would got me all whacked out sometimes, right? But
that's what I want to ask you about. I want to ask on your trips out late at night, do you ever see anything weird?
Yeah, I saw some UFOs, I think, one time.
That's what I was asking. All right. We want to hear that story.
Well, I was driving out on the 8. So that was there's two ways to Southern California out of Phoenix. You have the 10 and the 8. And so the
I'm
8
familiar
goes
with the
into
10.
San Diego, and the 10 goes into LA.
Okay.
And so I cut down to the 8. The 8's always better. The traffic's a lot less. You go through Yuma, El Centro. But I know each inch of both those freeways. I've driven them probably 150 times each. And so I'm driving back one time and I just saw these, it was, nighttime, and there were these like grouping of 4 lights, and they were just hovering, not moving or going anywhere. It was out in the middle of the desert. It was almost south enough. It was kind of between Gila Bend and Yuma. So I think it was over Mexico.
Okay.
Because you're real close
over Mexico.
I think that's where it kind of seemed like it almost was. It was a couple miles away, but I mean, I sat there and was just watching it, and then all of a sudden they just shot off and took off real fast. And I thought it was a UFO, I guess. I don't know. I couldn't think. I mean, there was balloons or helicopters, but it just didn't have any sounds, and they didn't look like they were grouped up right. And the weirdest thing these days, right, is now they're all declassified. Now UFO sightings are, I mean, every Tuesday you can read about the last 5 UFOs.
Right.
I probably saw 2 on the way to work this morning.
Well, and they're legitimate UFOs. So now we're really swerving, but this is the stuff I'm talking about. Like ever since, I don't know if it was COVID or whatever, it's been going on, right? But you got COVID, which a world pandemic, whatever you fall on, whatever, it doesn't matter. The impact is huge, and it will last forever. And then you tuck that in with work from home, and it isn't just about working from home. It's about the whole mentality of people who used to work in an office, enjoyed an office, quote, enjoyed an office environment because that's all they were used to. Casual Fridays, Taco Tuesdays, pizza parties, you know, all the bars, the cappuccino machines, all that stuff was in the office. All right. Never mind the fact that you hung out with people you probably wouldn't hang out with if you had a choice. You drove 40 minutes or more. I mean, I lived in, I lived in up by Lake Arrowhead and worked in Anaheim. That was a 4-hour drive there for 3 months. Yeah, that was crazy. I did it through the holidays too. It was, the 55, the 91, all the way up, back up. Anyway, so and people got used to that and it was the right thing to do. Everyone did it. All right, you went to work 9 to 5. No, 6:30 in the morning to 7 at night. Because it's a 9 to 5 job, but if you're not there early, the boss isn't going to recognize you, and you're not going to get a promotion. That whole mentality, we dug into that for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. That was the machine. And if you were to talk to me 10 years ago, I worked in the rent or wherever it was. Yeah, that's what we do. What else are you going to do? This is how we do it. The mortgage on. Well, COVID comes in, changes the whole ground crew, the whole groundwork, right? But what spins off of that is, well, gee whiz, I didn't know there was a coffee shop within walking distance of where I am, and I'm working here. And then, bills, now you get to know your neighbors and what's happening, and you're not hanging out with the grumpy old dude next to you in the cube or the crazy lady with all the stuffed animals in her cube and hearing about her weekend with the in-law, whatever, right? You're not, that environment is totally gone. You are sitting across the table from a spouse, or your kids come in after school and you see them when they come in. You don't miss teachers' conferences, which they didn't have, but no more cold dinners. All of a sudden, people are going, you know what, this is kind of cool. And by the way, I'm still doing my job, Mr. Boss and Mr. C-level. So now that mentality has changed the way business is, and hopefully everyone on our side of the table understands that really changes office technology. It changes the way we apply the technology that is still growing. Things are still changing on the technology side, advancing forward. But now to fit that into how people work is totally different. And I think that whole mentality, and then you can throw in the UFOs. Does anything shock anyone anymore? That's another thing. It's like, right. Okay, I'm just as productive at work. Don't even get me going on politics. There's a war and UFOs are real. Okay, what else you got? Oh, monkeypox. All right, what else? It's like, the aliens are coming in next Thursday. Saw that coming. Got anything else? The moon's going to fall. Yeah, I saw that movie too. So I think what's happening in society, this is now a time where everything, they used to silo everything. You didn't talk politics. You didn't talk religion. You didn't talk this, that, and that. You did business. When in reality, everyone still talked about it. We just didn't recognize it as a reality. And it was actually more relevant. Now all that is to the forefront. So I know this is a major tangent, but it impacts, I can bring it back. It impacts the way that my customers make decisions. It impacts the way dealers' customers make decisions. 80% of it is already done on the internet. Well, when they're looking for a price on a copier, guess what else they're reading? The UFOs are being, shown on a movie, a YouTube clip. They're watching that too. They're seeing all this weird stuff, So all that affects the way that these transactions take place. Here's the other things. No one knows how it's going to end. Nobody knows how it's going to be. Now we're really, no other time in history. We've been through a lot. My sentient years are from the 70s up. I remember the Jimmy Carters. I remember the Reagans and the ups and downs of the environment, the business, and all that stuff. It's never been like this. It has never been like this. There's so much. It's so dynamic. There's no playbook, but people are writing playbooks. So comes back to guys like you, guys like me, guys that are in our channel. They stop, they look around. Now I don't need to look who's going to do a 5-year forecast nowadays? Why? There's no way.
Yeah. Well, you could argue too. Everything's accelerated, and so if you think a little bit about Blockbuster, that unfolding happened over 5, 7, 8 years, right? Where you could see it coming. But now that window seems to be shrinking with businesses and industries where, a trend that started a year ago can get outdated. A business model or business concept can get outdated quickly. So you have to plan what you're doing and understand where you're going in there carefully, not in almost the Gretzky, right? Skating to where the puck is going to be. You just
right.
Going to be, you know,
yeah, it's going to be on a whole nother arena somewhere, and it's not on a 2-dimensional, it's a 3-dimensional. You know, I look at it as like almost like river rafting, and that's only 2-dimensional because you don't, if you've done it for the first time, you don't know what the river's got out there, and it's up and down, the turbines left and right. You can fall off, you can get back in, but you've got to be able to respond to things that you don't see 30 seconds in front of you. So now what that really does tell us is that our core values on a individual basis, that's what it falls back on. It's almost even like a military doctrine, a U.S. military doctrine is like, everything's going to go to shit. Everything's, but deal with it and move. You're going to rely on your ultimate internal individual training to be able to respond. And now I felt it myself. I mean, even with what the difficulties I've had with this particular getting the podcast and this thing going, there were years you probably did it too. You put 30 days into developing a business plan, 8 hours, 12 hours, and putting together a 30-slide deck that's going to tell everything. And this is the plan, this is the plan, this is the plan. Well, just like everyone's got a plan. Who said everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face? And then, you got to rely on whatever. I don't do that anymore. And I know a lot of people are more, and it isn't like we're flying by the seat of our pants. We're relying on what we know internally to be able to deal with whatever comes at us. And that's probably a good thing of all the dynamic stuff that's going on. It's like, okay, you're throwing curveballs at me. I'm kind of used to it. What can you do now to shock me?
It's difficult.
It's wild.
Business is unpredictable in a lot of ways already. And now you put in an unpredictable economy and world.
And you're right. It's accelerated. So the good side about that is because I compare the economic and the environment to the 70s when Carter was in, and I'm not getting political, but I'm getting, we had the energy crisis. Detroit was getting kicked in the shins. Carter was online telling everyone, not online, he was on TV telling everyone to do something with their thermostat and wear a sweater. And I think the California dude just did this, almost the exact same thing yesterday, turn your thermostat down or whatever. It's really eerie. The Soviet Union, although it's Russia, the Soviet Union is back in the news. They were big. And then so it's parallel, but like you were saying, it took 10 years to get out of that because that was the Reagan and literally I think the 90s were the go 90s of the recovery of the 80s. I'm thinking because what you just said, everything's accelerated, so the recovery should be accelerated.
Should. Yeah.
I'm hoping. Right.
We'll see rates go up. Hopefully we'll have 13% prime rate again, right?
I keep telling people because interest rates for credit cards were 18%, and everyone lived with it. It's like that's just what it was back then.
Yeah.
And gas went from 25 cents to $1. People were freaking out.
Yeah.
It's almost the same.
Yeah, but it's a technology, AI, all that stuff now. Everything does.
It's faster. Nuts. Well, cool. This has been great. So now this is why I wanted to get together with you. This is perfect. Name off your websites. How do people want to get in touch with you if they do? And we'll tag that on and I'll put it onto the post-production. But, if someone wanted to touch base with you.
The best one is Scott at zbasolutions.com. So ZBA Solutions is the main company I got over all three. And there's a website, zbasolutions.com. You can go in there and look, and it's got little videos, the different softwares, Offsite, Titan 8, Renew Alert. Again, my email is Scott at zbasolutions.com too.
Cool, Scott. Well, wow. Did you have anything else? Are you good? Because I think we covered a lot of stuff.
It was a great chat. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. It's an honor, especially your first one here, the first inaugural version. I think they said it was. It's an honor.
That's good, and it's going to be a great one. And
love to be back.
We're going to do this more, probably with more multiple partners. I'll get another guy out of the ecosystem that melds with what you offer, and hopefully we get some synergy together with that too. So anyway, okay, well, fun. Cool. For now, we'll sign off. I'll end the broadcast, but stay online, Scott. Okay. Anyway, thanks for taking a look at it, and we'll talk to you later.